Hi guys, Joel Portsmouth here, Solutions Consultant with IT Smart Solutions. Today we're going over some basic SharePoint training, so some fundamentals of sort of 101 SharePoint, which is part of a series of videos we have on the channel now of Office 365 basics. So we have some general Office 365 training and also some Outlook email training as well. So all of these videos are really suitable for someone that's migrated over from another platform, some sort of on-premises infrastructure, or possibly Google Suite or Google Workspaces, and aren't particularly too familiar with the Microsoft Office 365 ecosystem and suite of products. So we're not going to go too particularly in depth into technical details. The video today is just covering sort of the high level basics of kind of the core functions that you need to know to get up and running in your Office 365 account and in SharePoint for the first time, and begin with sort of your day-to-day use and work in a productive manner. So you can see here in my web browser, I've logged into Office 365 as usual, and again in our general Office 365 basic training video that we've got on the channel as well. I go over sort of how to do that and how to log in and manage your account and manage your passwords and things like that. So if you're not sure or aware about that, or sort of struggling to get to this step, then that's definitely another great video to review as well. So we're going to get started. We're just going to kick off and click the green S tile over here for SharePoint and log in. As I mentioned in the other videos in this series, I'm just skipping that security prompt there for multi-factor authentication for the sake of this video, but in a real world scenario, absolutely highly recommend turning it on for security purposes. So we're here at sort of the SharePoint homepage here, and so SharePoint is Office 365's document management system, or sort of what would replace a traditional file server. So it's kind of your cloud file storage and file sharing. And so the way SharePoint sort of works in terms of document management is you have different sites, and so a site sort of acts like a website or almost an intranet or a central hub, where it sort of has some web homepage kind of functionality for an intranet, and sort of some other collaboration and sort of features to work together in terms of task management and calendar management and things, but primarily where we're going to be looking at the document sharing back end here. So on the left hand side you'll have this sort of featured links section here, and so this is sort of a custom list of a variety of different SharePoint sites throughout your Office 365 tenancy, and so this list it can be configured personally by yourself and customized in your profile, or we can actually edit it for you ourselves at IT Smart Solutions on an administrator level, and there is also sort of little sections that pop up in the navigation bar too, where it will automatically list sites that you've recently visited or sites that you've frequented the most. So you can see here, this is a test account that I've made here, and it's the first time that I'm using it, so there's no recent activity showing here, but in the instance of this being a real account and you've started using the platform and interacting with SharePoint more, you'll start to see items pop up in this list on your homepage. Now, of course, you can even still bookmark particular sites in your web browser by sort of clicking the star here, and then you can even enable in your web browser the bookmarks bar, so there's sort of a toolbar that runs across the top here underneath the address bar that has links to sites that you've bookmarked on there, and so if there's a variety of SharePoint sites for a particular project or department or job function that you need to frequently access, it might be a good idea to add them to your bookmarks as well. So I'm just going to make a test site here as a demonstration, so a blank site to show you how everything works inside of a site. But it is also worth keeping in mind that you can create sites of your own in SharePoint too. Obviously, you can contact us, our help desk at IT Smart Solutions, and we can help you with that as well. But you do have the ability to create sites yourself as well, and invite certain users, certain sort of members or groups of your own, and manage the folder structure and the way the site looks, and who is and isn't a member of that group, and their permissions on your own. And so, absolutely feel free if there's a new project that props up, or some sort of breakout team, sort of department or group, or a particular thing you're working on. Feel free to make a site of your own geared towards what suits you and your members and the need of that site, and you can use that yourself, so that there sort of isn't limitations in terms of the different ways you can sort of the different denominations you can have. You can have multiple sites with all different types of members, all doing different types of things. So it's totally up to your workflow and your process, and how you operate in terms of collaborating with staff, and how you share documents both internally and externally. So I'm just going to make a site here by clicking the Create Site button. You can see we've got these two options here, a team site and a communication site. And there's a brief sort of blurb there of what each of these is. Generally, unless you sort of have a particular need for a communication site, a team site is probably going to be the one that you're going to opt for. And you can see here that it mentions that it's a site connected to a Microsoft 365 group. And so we'll explore that in more detail later, but as I briefly mentioned on a moment ago, you can create groups of your own and manage who is and isn't a member of that, and their permissions. And Microsoft 365 groups now go throughout the entire Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So that group isn't just isolated to SharePoint, it now ties into Microsoft Teams, so there'll be a particular group channel so that you can do instant messages and things in Teams. It also then creates in the Outlook backend an email address, sort of a distribution list or a distribution group for that group, where you can send an email to that group's email address, and it will send a copy of the email to all of the group members as a recipient. So this sort of groups or teams function in Microsoft 365 is now kind of a platform-wide thing, and all of the integrations between the different Microsoft products can rely on that group, and that's sort of one of the advantages of Office 365 is that you do then tie into Teams and Outlook and these other things. Whereas if you're using separate third-party platforms, for example, for instant messaging, you might be using Slack, and then for file storage, you might be using Dropbox, and then video meetings, you might be using Zoom. With Microsoft 365, Teams, Outlook, SharePoint, it takes care of all of those as an all-in-one solution, and they all talk to each other and integrate, and your groups and everything. Identity management comes across, which you don't get if you're trying to integrate, like I said, Slack, Zoom, other third-party solutions, and that reduces costs quite a bit as well. So obviously it's all already paid for in the one Microsoft Office 365 business license. So we'll click on Team Site here and give it a site name. And so you can see here, group email address, as I touched on, so it automatically makes that email address for you. It gives you the site address here. And then the privacy settings, so private, only members can access the site, and then you need to delegate who those members are as part of the group, or public allows it to be open to anyone at all in the organization. So we'll just press next here. We'll keep it private for an example. You can see, so you've got owners here. So an owner, by default, the person who clicks the Create Site button and goes through this prompt is the owner, or sort of the creator or the founder. So in this instance, it's myself and the test account that I've got. You can add additional owners, and so it's just worth bearing in mind that owners have an access level or a permission level called full control. And so full control is the very highest access level or permission level that allows complete control of the website, even so far as editing who is and isn't a member of the group. Can actually rename the site, delete the site, things like that. Members themselves sort of have a more low-level access that just allows them to sort of read and edit files, but they can't actually then go and delete the whole site or the whole group, or delete, data and folders inside of the site as well. So I'll just click finish for now as a demonstration without sort of adding any other members in. Obviously, you can always add additional owners and members later on from inside the settings, and we'll go over that. So if you skip that prompt or you miss it or you decide not to add members and owners at the time and then sort of change your mind further down the line, you don't need to worry, you've not missed out. There is still a way to access that and change it. And so first things first, you can see we've sort of got this pop-up here in terms of designing your site, and so there's a public sort of library from other Microsoft Office 365 users of templates, and they're great to at a glance be able to apply a certain look and aesthetic and sort of layout and formatting for a site without needing to design something yourself and sort of go through all of that time and effort. So lots of Office 365 products now are actually relying on these sort of public shared kind of collaborative type libraries of templates and things that are pre-built by Microsoft or by other Microsoft users, and so you can absolutely click maybe later and then leave the layout as it is by default, or you can still design it on your own by hand, but it's certainly worth having a browse if you've got a particular set of needs. You might be able to find a template that lines up with those needs pretty well and sort of save yourself a heap of time configuring that yourself. You can just slap on a template that someone's already sort of done the hard work for you and already created, and just do that automatically yourself. So for this example here, I'm just going to exit out of this, click the cross here in the corner to skip that step. We won't apply a template, but as I mentioned before, you can do that yourself if you wish. So this is sort of the home page of this blank team site that I've just created. And so when I was sort of speaking before about beyond the document sharing ability, SharePoint also sort of has this capability built in to act as an intranet or a sort of internal website or homepage, as well as a document sharing platform. This is what I was referring to. So you can see this default template that we've got here sort of has this news section here where kind of on your home page you have the ability to kind of add a brief blurb about new or recent things that have happened with the business, or sort of announcements and things that kind of need to be very front and center and quite apparent and eye-catching for your staff that are working throughout the business. And then we've also got this quick links module here on the side where you can edit this and it'll give you the option to sort of pin useful or important links at the top of the page on the front home page. So perhaps if there's particular important employee policies and procedures, you could have a link to them. It could be a link to third-party vendors' websites or customer websites. It could be a link to your own personal website outside of Office 365. It could even be links to other resources or documents inside of Office 365. So it's entirely customizable and entirely up to you. So you can see we've got sort of the documents and the activity and a variety of sort of other modules here. Incredibly customizable and if people are primarily in sort of a modern workplace IT strategy for a business going to be working out of Office 365, their SharePoint team site and then probably Microsoft Teams are going to be sort of the two central hubs and kind of core places that they're working out of day to day, and that's sort of the way Microsoft are now sort of beginning to structure and develop things as well. And so people can bookmark this or set it as their homepage, or you can save it as a link on their desktop. And so it's definitely worth sort of having a look and thinking about the kinds of things that you want on these home pages if you want to use them in that format, and editing them to fit your needs. So you can see we've got this edit pencil icon, which is sort of the standard icon to represent edit here in the top right hand corner. And so if we were to press edit, you then now kind of come into this editing mode where you can actually change the layout and the format of all of these modules. And just as a brief example, I'll click this plus here and show. So you can see we've sort of got these layout sections where we can kind of split the page up into particular little columns or sort of bars or sections and rows. And then if we were to then say come down into an existing column or section and hit the plus, you've then got all of these widgets here. So these are sort of little apps or kind of little bits and pieces that do things, sort of web parts on the page. So the blank template, as I showed before, by default it's kind of got news and quick links, but there's all of these options here. You can embed YouTube videos, social media. You can see with Twitter there, calendars, organization charts. So that's really good to, on a homepage, show at a high level with an organization chart the structure of a business and who managers and executives are, so that particularly in a large business with a lot of people, staff members at a glance on the homepage of the team site can see I guess the chain of command or who they need to speak to escalate things. You've got the group calendar as well, so that that could be great to mark important deadlines or important dates for the company to see. So on this day we've got fire safety drill, on this day is the Christmas party. So there's all sorts of options that you can add there. There's this planner option as well. So tying into Microsoft To Do and Microsoft Planner, you can even track tasks and deadlines for project management, and so you can have on the front page tracking the progress of where the company is as a whole, or where a particular team or department is progressing on a certain project. And then there's even some data analysis options here with charts and Power BI, which is sort of the business intelligence platform of Microsoft. So you can even tie in sort of graphs and charts, pulling data from Excel or Power BI to track company performance or company-wide goals. So it could be tracking revenue or money made, things like that. And then you can see weather and maps and some particular instances, if there's a team site for a particular project or site that's being worked on in a company for a construction industry. I've seen instances of people piping in Bing Maps to kind of track traffic to a certain location. If you're working for a construction company on a certain construction site at an address, or even tracking the weather, so you can see whether it's raining in a certain spot, if that if you work in that kind of industry, construction, or something outdoors where you need to track the weather or the traffic, and distance to get there with Bing Maps. Then you've got the world clock as well, and so that's really handy for people across multiple states or across multiple countries, where you can have kind of a visible way to track the time of your other offices and other staff around the world with the different time zones. And then with this sort of advanced area here, there's sort of some more code heavy. You can see this sort of code snippet and embed options, and then that's probably the kind of thing that if you had a web development team or a web developer, that they could actually help out with that and code things manually for you. But then there's some of these third-party options here as well. Salesforce and Trello are both probably quite common ones in terms of Salesforce CRM, and Trello is sort of a project management, task management sort of different boards, that kind of Kanban management, project management style. So you've got a whole, wide array of different functions that you can add there. So I'm just going to press discard changes to jump out of that here, and come back to this page here, and not make any changes, save any changes, or finalize anything, just for demonstration. But absolutely, if that was a site of your own that you did want to permanently edit and make changes to, you'd adjust what you want to, and then press save changes and continue from there. Okay, so I'm going to move on with some of the more document management side of the features now. But before I do move on, I just want to briefly touch on one little thing that's part of the homepage still, rather than the documents page. And this is this little following star icon up in the top right-hand corner. And so this is basically a button that you can either click to have it filled in as following, or click again to leave it as unfilled and blank and not following. But that following a website then adds it to that list of followed sites on that SharePoint homepage that we were in before. So obviously it doesn't really make sense to follow pages that or team sites that you don't frequently access or that you don't work on, but certainly sites that you use on a daily basis, or that are you're working on, or they're pertinent to your role. Definitely click follow the site so that you pin it to that followed list on the SharePoint homepage for easy access. So that's definitely worth keeping in mind as another feature to look at on this homepage here. So we'll move along with going to the documents side of things, which is just this documents button on the navigation pane on the left hand side. Again, you can see there's a notebook there which ties into OneNote, and conversations, which is Teams. You've got the recycle bin as well, which is worth being aware of. If something gets accidentally deleted, you can restore from there. But of course there's an edit button too, and so you can delete any of these options and add your own as well. So again, very similar to the edit button over here on the home page. SharePoint's very customizable in that everything that you see, all the buttons and the links and the widgets, can all be completely customized to what works best for you. So if you're not utilizing the notebook, it might be something that you want to press edit and remove from the list to kind of cut down on that noise. If it is something you want there, you might leave it, and you can add additional buttons as well, and that's again entirely up to personal preference, but just worth being aware of. This sort of vast customization capability is what makes SharePoint really powerful. So we'll click on documents to come to the documents section of the site, and discuss some more of the features here. So obviously it's blank at the moment. I'm on a test account and a test SharePoint site, so there's no data here, but this would be where you would sort of traditionally now store all of your business critical data. So it's no longer sort of on a NAS or a physical server hardware kept on premises. You would now put it in SharePoint and OneDrive as part of Office 365. And then so again, you don't need Dropbox or any of these third-party things. So you reduce costs and sort of increase efficiency by streamlining things. So like I touched on in the other Office 365 videos, all of Office 365 can be done online in the web browser using Office Online. But with SharePoint, you can do it offline as well using the OneDrive sync client, which syncs a local copy to your offline PC of all of the SharePoint files that are in the cloud. And so the two of them mirror with each other and keep in sync. And so I'm going to go over sort of features both of the online and offline version, just to sort of show you how they work and differentiate. So as an example, I think we'll just press this new button here and create some folders and documents, so that you've got a bit of an idea of the folder structure and how everything looks. And so you can see we've still sort of got this manila folder icon for a folder here, and likewise with Word documents, Excel, PowerPoint, they all have the same icon, and browsing, you just double click to open a file, double click to browse down into a folder, and then you can click on the parent folder or the root folder level one higher up to go back a level in the folder structure, or you can use even the back and forward arrows in your browser itself. But in terms of being concerned about a learning curve or the difference between the two and how everything looks, Microsoft have put a lot of work into making sure that everything looks more or less identical to how standard offline file storage looks inside of File Explorer in Windows 10. And so you'll notice actually these three sort of little blue lines sort of to the top left of the capital T in test, and just a very minor sort of cosmetic thing, but worth being aware of. That is the symbol for recently updated or recently modified, and so that's just sort of worth knowing that at a glance, if you're kind of looking at different folders and files inside of a SharePoint team site, if something's been recently edited or changed, it will have this symbol. And so it's a great way of sort of being able to keep an eye on the latest, most recent changes without needing to individually click and drill into every single file and folder to check, whether there's been a change to it recently or not. So moving on, we'll drill down into this folder here, and so now you can see we've got documents and tests. So like I mentioned, we sort of, with these right facing arrows, get this kind of folder structure developing here. And if again I make another subfolder and click into that, you can now see we've got the file sort of path here, and we're in test subfolder, but I can come up a level and click test, which brings us up a higher level, and then again documents brings us back to the very highest level, so the root or parent folder. So I'm just going to drill back into the bottom of the folder structure here, the very last child folder, which is called test subfolder, and we'll just make a Word document under new and selecting Word document as a test, and I'm just going to type some words in here, some data, so that we've sort of got a document to use as an example. And so again, like I mentioned in the other videos and earlier in this video too, we have Office Online, so an online web browser version of all of the Office suite, and so this is the Word version of that here. So you can see you've still sort of got the vast majority of functionality in the web browser that you would have in regular Microsoft Word. So you can sort of highlight, change colors, bold, italics, underline, size and font, your bulleted lists and paragraphs and tables, left align, center align, right align, and indenting and all of that. Like I said, there is some very sort of rare edge cases where the offline application works and has a function that the web browser doesn't, just because the web browser sort of can't handle everything, and it's a little bit more limited and sort of things that are very resource intensive and sort of hungry for processing power might not always work in the browser. But for your regular sort of day-to-day basic functions, you could absolutely work on a Word document out of the web browser like this. Now we've got this editing button here, so if we did click that, you then see we've got this open in desktop app version. So if you are working on the offline version and a function's missing, or it's slow, or it's not working, you can very easily toggle to the offline desktop application. Very easily click that and it will automatically open up Word on your PC with the same document, and then you can go from there, and so you can toggle between the two as required. So I'm going to jump out of this document now just to sort of show you here what the document looks like inside of the folder structure. Again, we've got the Microsoft Word icon and the three little lines to show that it was recently modified or updated. And so the great thing about SharePoint is you do sort of have some default redundancy, some limited redundancy or version history built in. Now it is very limited in terms of size, and it does only keep quite a small time frame, and it doesn't do this for every Office 365 product. We do actually have a full third-party cloud-managed Office 365 backup service that we do offer that I'd highly recommend. But in this instance, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to come back into the document and just make what would be a test example of a second lot of changes, or a second batch of changes to this document a few moments later. And what we should then have is actually a separate version created under the version history in SharePoint that shows this first test that I added up the top, and now this second version here. I've made a second change in the history where it's bold and in caps with a red color and yellow highlight. So you'll notice too, actually we've got it indicates saved here in the top. So Microsoft Office 365 being cloud-based does actually do auto save. So every couple of minute increments, or every time you make a change, it automatically saves the document back up to the cloud for you. So you sort of no longer need to keep going file save or file save as or control less or whatever it is that you're doing. It automatically does that for you. So I've made that second change there. We'll close that tab and come back to our folder structure here, sort of our file explorer, our browser. And if we click these three dots here, which is sort of the option to sort of extend a menu of additional options, and you can see we have this version history button here. So if I click version history, what we should see here is the different sort of chains or links kind of in the thread of the file's history and the version numbers, as well as who made the change and on what date and when. And so the first version would be the blank document when I first created it. The second one a minute later would be the first test that I added, and then this third one would be the second. And so if, for example, someone made an error, or they overwrote something, or they made a change that you wanted to reverse, you can see that the version with the time and date, it's actually a clickable hyperlink here. Let's click version 2, for example, and what we should see is that it will roll back and actually show me the version of the document that just had the single word test in the document, without then that second test 2 that I added that was highlighted and bolded and red in color. So I'm just going to drill into this document again, and as I mentioned with the version history, if someone accidentally overwrites your change or makes a change or an update that you want to roll back on, you can do that through that version history option that I showed you. But what you should see both in the web browser version and the offline version is simultaneous co-authoring is actually allowed on documents. And so what will sort of normally show up in this sort of blank section of the ribbon bar up the top here in the top right hand side is if someone else is connected into the document at the same time as you, their sort of little circle with their profile picture, which in this instance for this account I've not created a profile picture yet, so it just pulls your initials of your first and last name, but it will actually show them as also being in the document at the same time as you up here in this bar. And then it will actually, if you can see, I've sort of got my cursor here on this line in the document, it will actually highlight the other person's cursor in the document and again show their sort of little profile picture in a circle or their initials. And so you can actually track not only that they're in the document making changes or viewing it at the moment at the same time as you, but real time where they are in the document and where they're making changes. You know, whether it's in a particular sentence or on a particular page, you can track that as well. And so this is great in that with SharePoint, everyone's working on the real-time same copy of the file at once. It's not you send it as an email attachment and then they file save as and make edits and then send it back to you, and then you maybe sent it to 2 or 3 or 4 people, and so they're all sending you back their own version with their own edits, and you end up with 4 different versions of the same original document, and then you need to kind of find a way to merge them all together and copy paste the changes into the one document. You're no longer sort of needing to fiddle with giving people offline separate copies as an attachment in an email, or tracking different changes. You give them the link to the online real-time document in SharePoint, and you can all work on the original document at once without needing to worry about version control and different versions of the file. You've got that built-in version history, so that if anyone does need to roll back or track changes or reverse or remove edits that someone has made, you can do that as well. But it really sort of cuts down on some of that admin overhead of people collaborating on different files at the same time, because it is a fully online solution. So I'm going to jump out of this now and sort of start to now touch on some of the offline document features of this here. So you'll notice you've got this upload button here, and that gives you the option to upload a file or folder into the SharePoint team site that is stored locally on your PC. But when we use the offline version with this sync button here, which I'll start to show in a moment, you'll be able to access it offline in File Explorer and Windows 10, which is the manila folder icon that I'm hovering over right now. And in the same sense, you can copy paste something into that file in File Explorer, and OneDrive Sync Client will then upload it and mirror it and sync it back to the original online SharePoint site. So it's just worth being aware that they do all talk to each other and stay in sync and are mirrored. And so if you want to upload new data to a site, you don't have to necessarily do it through the web browser with the upload button. You can click and drag or copy paste into the SharePoint folder or the OneDrive folder locally on your Windows PC inside of File Explorer. So you have got this download button, like I mentioned here. This will just grab an offline, non-synced live copy of the particular document that you want or particular folder that you want. It's this sync button here in the toolbar instead that it does still download a copy for you, but it's not an offline copy. It's a cloud attached copy that is connected to the SharePoint site online in Microsoft Office 365. And so with the offline downloaded version, any changes that are subsequently made in SharePoint won't be reflected in a document that you've just pressed download on. But if you've pressed sync, they continue talking and remain in sync, and so the changes will reflect there. So there's the sync button on the toolbar in every folder inside of SharePoint, and so it's up to personal preference to choose how you want to sync the data down to your local PC, and if at all. So if we were to come back to documents here and press sync, the sync works at the level in the folder structure that you're currently in the web browser. So if I were to press sync here, it would sync this documents library, and I would see the test folder, and then I would also see the test subfolder, and then the document here, the Word document beneath it. Now, if I were to press sync here from inside of test subfolder, so I'm down 2 levels in the folder structure rather than up the top here at documents, it will just sync test subfolder, and all I'll see beneath the folder that I'm syncing is this Word document here. And so again, you could even do it midway here, the folder in the middle, test. So you do have the option to select one or multiple files or folders with these check marks here, and then not just necessarily choose sync or download, creating a shortcut in OneDrive or sharing. You can kind of go to a more granular level inside of the folder structure with any button or menu option that you want to select for a particular subset of files or folders. So you don't necessarily have to, make that decision to the bulk of the files and folders. And so with the syncing offline, that is definitely something worth keeping in the back of your mind, that everything that you sync using the sync button from SharePoint offline with the OneDrive sync client is going to be taking up space on your local disk or your local C drive, the hard drive inside of your computer. And so ideally you do want to pick and choose which folders you sync down and keep it to the folders that you most frequently use or that you need for your job. You don't sort of just want to come to the very top here at documents and just press sync and sync the whole lot of everything for every single team site, regardless of which site it is and what data is contained underneath it, because you're going to be syncing a lot of files and folders that you don't need and that you don't use. And all that's going to serve to do is it's going to take a long time to sync, and then it's going to take a lot of data up on your computer, a lot of storage space, and make things run very slow for no particular reason. Now, like I said, with Office Online, you can work with everything online and not sync anything offline at all whatsoever. With syncing offline, like I said, they talk the offline and online copy, but the online copy does require an internet connection. So SharePoint in the web browser obviously needs an internet connection to access this website. So if you did, for example, know that you were going to be without an internet connection sometime soon, you might be traveling on a plane or something, for example, and wanted to work on a document, it would be a good idea to sync that document offline ahead of time by selecting and pressing the sync button. Obviously, you won't have an internet connection while you're on the plane or wherever you are without a connection. You will be able to work on the document offline using the Word desktop application or Excel, PowerPoint, whatever it is, depending on the type of document to edit. But then when you do eventually come back onto an internet connection and connect up to the internet again, it will then sync back up with the SharePoint site online in the cloud. So obviously, if for whatever reason, in a very, very rare case, if something happens to that cached offline file on your laptop between now and the time that you connect back up with the internet, so if it became corrupt or accidentally got deleted, or maybe virus or hard disk failure, or your laptop got stolen, unfortunately you do need that internet connection for it to connect back up and sync online. But other than that, if you've got an internet connection, working from home or working in the corporate office of your business, 99 times out of 100 you're going to have a steady internet connection all of the time, and you can work perfectly online without syncing anything at all, or using the offline version, and everything is going to talk and sync and mirror very quickly, pretty much instantly with no delay and no problems. So in this example, let's just sync documents from the very top as an example, like I mentioned. So I'm just going to press the sync button here, and so it'll take a moment here, and then you will get this prompt often the first time in your browser, just asking you to allow your SharePoint site to open open links, which is OneDrive open. And so that's just the name of the protocol or the file extension that OneDrive uses inside of the browser to open up these files and sync them. So you can just press open link as a one-off. If you tick this always allow box, it will sort of remember that choice and it won't prompt you again. So ideally, if it's your SharePoint site and it's safe and you're using OneDrive in the browser, tick that box so that it remembers that choice, and then you won't have to deal with this prompt again. So I'll press open link here and give it a moment. You can just see actually down now in the bottom right hand corner, in the taskbar, SharePoint has OneDrive has popped up, which sort of shows that it's open and running and beginning to get to work. And so if you've not signed into OneDrive yet for the first time, which if it's your first time using Office 365 will be the case, you'll get this sign-in prompt here. And so for the purposes of this video, I've not signed in already so that we can go through the sign-in process and show you what it looks like. So you can see it's already pre-filled my email address there as the username because it's detected that I'm signed in with that same account in the web browser for SharePoint. So I'm just going to press sign in and give it a moment here to load. And I'll pop in my password that it asks for, and you can see it's sort of the proper Microsoft login with the Microsoft logo, and it's sort of connecting to Microsoft's online modern authentication. So it will, if you've got multi-factor authentication turned on as well, it will actually ask for that as well. So I'm just going to use our test account here. Again, like I said, for the demonstrations of the video, I'm going to skip that security step for multi-factor authentication, but in a real world scenario, you shouldn't skip that. You should definitely turn it on. So I'm just going to go past that and give it a moment here to sign in and load. And now you can see it's created this test site documents folder in the folder structure of Windows in my C drive. And there is this change location button here if for whatever reason you did want to change the folder path, but by default it will put it under your user profile in the C users folder. Now if we press next, I'm just going to press use this folder rather than create a new folder. It just asks you to clarify that if you've got an existing OneDrive folder structure on your computer from another account, which I do. So I have my personal corporate account on here as well as the test account for this video. But I'm going to keep going next through the prompts, as what should happen is soon we're actually going to come across a new feature of OneDrive that I want to cover, which is the automatic PC backup option. And so I'm just going to press later on getting the mobile app as well. But what OneDrive does now is not only does it give you the option to just sync your OneDrive folder itself, it will also actually automatically sync desktop downloads, my documents, my videos, my pictures, sort of all of those default storage folders under your user profile in Windows. And so that sort of allows you to continue using that existing folder structure on your desktop without needing to copy paste everything into a different folder, such as the OneDrive folder, but then you still back up the data and get sort of the safety of backing up your data in cloud storage. So I'll come back to the top level here, so you can see it automatically names in the folder sort of in the format of the name of the site, and then a dash, and then a name of the folder or the level that we synced it at. And so if we drill down, the same as the browser, we've got test, then we've got the two test subfolders, and then obviously under the first test subfolder, we have our test Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. So again, everything in sync, all talking together, but now this is in the offline File Explorer Manila folder icon that I'm in here, and then you access it just as if it's a normal file or a normal file server on your computer instead of in the browser. And so by default, you'll have this blue cloud OneDrive icon pinned on the navigation pane on the left hand side. As soon as you have OneDrive installed and logged in, it automatically pins your OneDrive here sort of to this favorites menu or quick access menu. So if you're having a tough time finding or remembering where you put the OneDrive folder, you should always be able to find it from this icon on the side. Now, you will notice this new status column here that is next to all of the files and folders. And so at the moment, it's a blue cloud icon, which actually means it's cloud only or it's online only. And so that's a feature of OneDrive is now called File on Demand. And so it sort of relates to saving that storage space that I was touching on before. So with Files on Demand, there's actually not a local copy of the file stored on your C drive in File Explorer. So OneDrive indexes the folders and the files, which means it sort of pulls the metadata, or sort of some brief information about the file name, location, size, type of file it is, but it doesn't then actually pull down the rest of the actual body and sort of core data of the document. So that's a great way to sort of save space, and it will only, let's say I go to open the Word document here with a double click. What you'll see is it'll then reach out to Microsoft's cloud, download the Word document on an as needed basis because I've asked it to open the document, and this cloud icon will then change to a green tick, which signifies we've downloaded a copy. We've now got a local offline copy of this Word document, but of course the blue cloud will remain next to the Excel and PowerPoint document to say that that's still in the cloud. And so, like I said before, if you've got an internet connection all the time from home or at a corporate office, then I'd recommend using Files on Demand all the time, because it's a great way to save storage space. But again, you do just need to double check and sort of plan ahead if you are going to be syncing something down so that you can work on it during a period when you've not got an internet connection. Make sure that you've synced it down as a local offline copy. So if you've synced it down but only done it as a cloud only copy as parts of Files on Demand, then when it goes to retrieve a local copy of that cloud only document, if you've not got an internet connection, it won't work. So you do just need to sort of make the differentiation between the two, and just be aware of the files and folders that I have synced and that I need access to. Are they online only or are they offline? And it's sort of a juggle between managing storage space, but then also managing access if you've never not got an internet connection. So we'll double click on the Word document here. Like I said, you see it briefly sort of changed to two blue swirling arrows in a circle, which is sort of the syncing or the in progress icon. And then now it's changed to a green tick now that it's finished downloading. So we've got a local copy of that now. And if, for example, I were to come to my Wi-Fi properties here, and I'm actually going to disconnect my personal Wi-Fi, what you'll see is if I now go to open the Word document again, it will open despite me being disconnected from my Wi-Fi, because we've got a local copy. Now, if I exit out of this and try to open up the blank Excel document, which is cloud only, you'll see we get this can't open online only file error because I'm not connected to the Wi-Fi. So that sort of demonstrates the difference between the two and what happens. So like I mentioned, you just need to plan ahead and be aware of what is and isn't online only or local only, which is offline, and whether you're going to have an internet connection or not. Now, you can always change this later on, a couple of different methods, and I'll go over both of them here. So if we right click on the document itself in File Explorer, you can see we now have these extra items in the context menu. So we've got Share with the blue cloud icon next to it for OneDrive, but then you've got View Online and Always Keep on this device. So with a cloud document like this, I could right click and say, always keep on this device, and that would then, without opening the document and double clicking it, force it to keep a local copy and download it offline. And then this status symbol in the status column would change from a blue cloud to a green tick. So you can do that by right clicking on any file or folder in the folder structure and viewing the additional items in the context menu. But the other way to do it is right clicking the blue cloud icon in the taskbar for OneDrive and clicking the gear or cogwheel icon for settings and coming into settings. And now we have this Files on Demand. You can turn it on and off at a global level, or you can come to this account tab and test site documents, which is what we synced, I can press choose folders, and it will actually then bring up another context menu, which lets me say, maybe I want to just sync subfolder 2 and keep an offline copy of that, but not subfolder 1. So you can expand and collapse these and make changes depending on particular folders, particular files of your preference. So that is the way that you would change that. So while we're in these settings here, I'll take a look at some of the other options that are handy to know about. You've got the start and stop sync option here. If you want to, for whatever reason, pause syncing or stop it, turn it off, turn it back on. And you've got the unlink this PC and add an account option. And so you can see here I've got the test site documents folder, which is for this test dummy account that I've made. But there is also the OneDrive IT Smart Solutions folder that has paused syncing while I'm using this dummy account, but that is actually for my personal Joel Portsmouth corporate account. And so you can actually in here add multiple OneDrive accounts at once and multiple sites or multiple folders, and you'll notice multiple accounts listed, multiple locations listed, all is syncing, and they'll all have both a stop and start sync button and a choose folders button where you can at a granular level choose particular subfolders and files to sync or not sync. So you don't necessarily just need to sync one site or one folder or one account. You can, using all of these options and settings and the buttons for them here, manage multiple folders, multiple sites, and multiple accounts. Now, the unlink this PC is sort of the equivalent of signing out of your account. And obviously, if this is the account that you're using as your daily driver, you wouldn't want to do that 9 times out of 10 because you're going to lose access to your files. But it is worth knowing that button's there, as sometimes if you're running into issues with OneDrive for whatever reason, in some rare instance, the unlink and then relink, so sort of sign out and sign back in, often fixes those issues. So it is just worth being aware of that button as sort of a preliminary troubleshooting step, that if for whatever reason you're getting all sorts of sync errors or things aren't syncing properly, things just aren't working, unlink and then link again, and then that will kind of sometimes force it to start everything from scratch and get its act together and sort of reset things and start syncing properly again. So that is worth being aware of there. So if we come to the network, this is by default set for don't limit for everything. That's just limiting the speed of transferring of files, like I was sort of touching on before in the Office 365 basics. If you are traveling remotely or working remotely and using OneDrive, particularly if you're on a metered connection like a 4G or 5G mobile data hotspot or dongle, or if you're tethered to your phone, you may want to edit these to kind of lower the speeds so that you don't run into excess data charges or go through sort of your data cap or data limit by accident by syncing large amounts of data at high speeds that you didn't want to or that you weren't aware of. Now we've got the Office tab. Again, this just is sort of options regarding if there's a sync conflict, if people are working on documents at the same time, whether it keeps both copies or merges them. That's up to a particular sort of personal preference. And then our regular settings tab, I've touched on files on demand here to save space, but again with that network tab you've got the ability to pause when it's on a metered network, and also the ability to pause when you're in battery saver mode, which again, personal preference. If you're working on a PC that doesn't run on battery with a charger like a laptop and it's connected to mains power, this might not be necessary. And then starting OneDrive automatically when you sign in with Windows, which is worth, if you use it again on a day-to-day basis, worth leaving on. You don't want to restart your computer and sign in for the first time and start working on some documents, but they're actually not syncing with the cloud and updating because OneDrive isn't running in the background and was requiring and sort of waiting for you to, manually log in and kickstart it yourself. So it's definitely preferable to leave it to automatically sign in each time you turn the computer on, so that from, as soon as you turn things on and start working, everything's connected and online and syncing to the cloud. So I'm just going to swap back to the web browser here. One sort of final thing that I will talk about is the Teams integration and the Teams backend. And we do have quite a few other videos on the channel of Teams training and some webinars as well where we go over the Teams backend. But you can create groups or teams with associated chat channels inside of Microsoft Teams, and then by default those teams have a files tab, and so it's just worth being aware that as soon as you create a team or a group in Microsoft Teams, it then creates an associated team site with that on the back end in SharePoint. And so all of the files that are being shared in Microsoft Teams among those group members in that files tab are actually being uploaded and stored to SharePoint. And so again, one of the great sort of streamlining and efficiency benefits of the Office 365 suite, but it is just being, worth being aware of, if you ever need to access that data or view it, copy it, move it, share it, things like that, that you can access that data from inside the web browser in SharePoint rather than via Teams. And so if you go to the SharePoint homepage and browse through the list of sites, you'll see one there for the Microsoft Teams group that you've created. Now, one more thing before I touch on the final point of sort of external guest sharing is this return to classic SharePoint button down here. And again, this is another one that we've touched on in a few of our videos, including Microsoft Bookings training. So it's up to personal preference for lots of products. The new experience, as Microsoft calls it, or sort of the modern experience, which is the updated view and the updated interface, is a lot nicer and cleaner and sort of sleeker and very fast. But it does sort of change the way things look and put things in different places. And some people may be more familiar with the classic experience or the classic version, so the old version, or they might have an easier time finding things in that view, or it might even be a bit of both, that you sort of toggle between the two. So very sort of minor cosmetic point, but it is just worth being aware of this return to classic SharePoint button here. If you click on that, it will change the view to the old classic view, which you can see obviously looks quite different and things are in quite a different place. But again, personal preference, just worth being aware of. You've then got the exit classic experience button again, which will bring us back to the new modern experience. But if you have a particular attachment to the old version, or you're more familiar with that, that's the button and where to find it to change between the two. So the final thing I want to touch on is external sharing. You can contact our help desk and we can manage the permissions for you from an administrator side of things. But like I mentioned when we created this test site, as a site owner, you do have the ability to do this yourself. So again, we can hover over and click the circle check mark next to a particular folder or file, or multiple folders and files that we want to share. And we've sort of got this external pointing arrow here, which is the share icon on the toolbar, or it's also next to the folder itself. And so if we press share, because Office 365 is cloud-based, we can pop in the email address of someone else external to the company, and then actually send them a link to this SharePoint file or folder, and you can actually put a custom message in here as well. And so we've got this option here, whether their access that we send them allows them to view only or edit. And if we come into link settings, we can actually set sort of further levels of access here. There's sort of the ability to send a link and anyone can view it without a Microsoft account, or you can prompt them to have to create their own free Microsoft account as well. And then there is actually options too to set an expiration date on the sharing link and a password as well. Again, like I was sort of touching on before, it's great to be able to have people simultaneously co-author a live online document in real time, so that you're not sort of fiddling around with sending offline copies as attachments in Outlook and having issues with version history and merging and replacing changes. You can share documents externally via this method, and you can see, so down the bottom here it will tell you who is actually shared with, and you can click and drill into those particular people and edit their level of access, or remove it, or add someone else. So if you don't fill in this message field here, it would just sort of send like a blank default message with sort of some default notification text from Microsoft that sort of says, such and such has sent you an invitation to access this folder, click here, but you can amend a message of your own and sort of customize that and send it to them. Or you can even press this copy button just to copy the link itself and then go and paste it into Teams or Outlook and type up sort of a separate email or message of your own. Or you could even copy paste it and then send it via SMS, or copy paste the link and read it out to someone over the phone. So if you've got a particular method you'd prefer to communicate it with them, or you don't want to use the sort of the standard templated Microsoft version, then you can just copy the link and take that and paste it wherever you want yourself and send it via another method. There is sort of organization level global settings about external sharing that we can assist with editing if needed as administrators, around whether external sharing is allowed at all, whether they need an account or not to track sign-ins and sort of auditing logs, or whether we can just send a link to anyone, and things like that. And so that you may notice this anyone with the link being grayed out in your organization, which means that that's not enabled, or there's some sort of security settings locking those down, in which case if you contact us, we're more than happy to help out with modifying those settings. Again, you do sort of need to take into account your organization's security policy and whether you want that link to just be able to be sent to anyone, and then it can potentially be forwarded to others and hard to track things for security purposes, or whether you want to force people to have to sign in if they're an external guest that you're sharing a document with, which obviously allows you to track things easier and makes things a little bit more secure and more locked down. Although of course that then does mean that they have to sign up for an account, which can be a bit time consuming and a bit trickier for some people. So you do sort of need to balance security with convenience. You might not want the ability to share things externally at all, particularly if it's critical or sort of sensitive data or confidential data, and we then have the ability to set these policies not just at a global level, but for particular sites at a site level, or particular files and folders. So we can have it that external sharing is allowed for documents or folders or sites that aren't particularly critical or sensitive or confidential, but then you might have a team site that is created for your HR department, and so that there's sensitive information there, about people's salaries and things, and people's personal information, and so you might choose to allow external sharing for every site, but for the HR team site not allow external sharing, sort of for safety and privacy and security reasons. And there's definitely many more advanced security features built into Office 365 that we can help with as well, that you're more than welcome to feel free to reach out about. Some of the advanced Microsoft 365 licensing has things such as data loss prevention policies, where we can put rules in place that prevent certain files or folders in SharePoint from being able to be emailed outside of the organization. We can prevent copy-paste inside certain documents. We can prevent printing on certain documents, or we can even set rules for which devices are allowed to access particular files and folders. So you might want to only allow access to those files and folders on a corporate computer, a desktop PC or a laptop, but not a phone or a tablet or someone's personal device at home. We can even set conditions that people can't log into the site unless they're running a certain minimum version of Windows 10. So if their Windows 10 is too out of date with their updates, which can pose a potential security risk, then we can block them from signing into that SharePoint site, or we can detect if their PC has no antivirus installed. We can prevent them from logging in and accessing that data too. So absolutely, please reach out if that kind of additional security requirement is something you're interested in. So the final thing I'll touch on is the settings button, the gear or the cogwheel icon in the top right hand corner. And so I want to go into the site permissions section first, as it sort of correlates most to the external sharing permissions that we just touched on. So if in this new tab here, I'm just going to go into site permissions, and then we have this advanced permissions settings option here. And so it is just being worth being aware of this area here. If you're sort of wanting to do an audit of all the people that have external sharing permission, you might want to do a tidy up or a clean up. This is where you can actually get a kind of a pretty granular, fine detail view of exactly who has what level of access. You can even do this check permissions item here, where you can put in someone's username or email address, and it will spit out a result of what permission level they have. So the obviously sort of the share window here, it's pretty sort of sleek and modern, but it is kind of a bit bare bones. And so if you really do kind of want to do a deep dive on security and who can access your data and sort of security around your business information, this site permissions area exists under the settings. Now there is also sort of these change the look and apply a site template options here, and I touched on those sort of at the very top. They're around changing the color and the theming of the site, or inserting company logos, cover photos, banners, and then the site templates. Again, sort of the layout with the columns and the grids and particular widgets on the home page. They're all there as well. Similar under site contents and library settings. So there's lots of things that let you really fine tune the look and feel of a particular SharePoint site. So I'm not going to go into too much fine detail on those, but I guess just be aware that they are there. And if you're creating a new site and using SharePoint for the first time, feel free to go into that settings menu, open those areas up, and have a poke around, look at what settings are available, and there's lots of sort of personal preference, nice to have items in there that you might want to enable or change to suit your preference most. So that about concludes it for today in terms of SharePoint and OneDrive training. Like I said, we've got plenty of other basic Office 365 training videos on the channel as well that you're more than welcome to check out. Both Outlook basic training as well as the SharePoint one, so sort of for your emails if it's your first time using the platform, and some more generalized Office 365 basic training videos as well that look at sort of Office 365 more as a whole. But then we've also got plenty of more advanced training videos too that go into deeper technical details about some of the products, SharePoint included, and sort of webinars as well, where we talk about long-term IT strategy and sort of long-term strategy involving Office 365. So please feel free to check all of those out and also contact myself or any of the team members, and we're more than happy to help out with any queries or training or further demonstration of Microsoft products, Office 365, both Outlook and SharePoint we've covered in the basics training series here, or other products as well, and general non-Microsoft related IT queries at large as well. Thanks very much. Cheers. Bye.